We're in the early stages of a tsunami. That's Carl Cox, CEO of 40 Strategy, and he's talking about AI's impact on business. But here's what's wild. While most companies are frozen like deer in headlights, Carl's clients are riding the wave. Welcome to Talent Talks. In the episode, we're diving deep with a strategist who's helping CEOs turn what he calls 140 hours of wasted genius into breakthrough results. Carl just ran a workshop for 40 CEOs that got a perfect 100 Net Promoter Score. And he's got some pretty provocative ideas about why most strategic plans fail spectacularly. You're about to hear how one client went from 140 hours of work down to just 24 hours of actual value creation, why having 600 project managers for 600 projects might actually be genius, and Carl's framework for 10-week sprints that actually get executed. Plus, he'll tell you exactly why checking your email first thing in the morning means you've already lost the day. Let's dive in.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Talent Talks. My name is Emily Alvarez, and I'm your host today. Today, I'm joined by a guest, Carl J. Cox, and he is the CEO and founder of 40 Strategy and 40 Accounting. I'm very excited to welcome him. He is an entrepreneur and guide to strategy and all things business related. He is the host of the Measure of Success podcast and $4 Million podcast. And he has an incredible vision of 10-year impact, 1 million, and also 10 million orgs, right? 10 million orgs, and to donate 1 million to charity, which is something that is very near and dear to my heart. So welcome to the show, Carl. I'm very excited to have you here today.
Emily, it's an absolute privilege. Thank you so much for being a guest on your podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So today we're talking about rediscovering human value in the age of strategic disruption, which is something that is very prevalent in today's space. We have a lot of disruptors coming from inside and outside organizations. Time management, efficient time management is a big one, especially coming in with AI, different technologies, and then culture, right? Culture has changed, and that kind of buzzword has taken on different meanings depending upon who is really iterating those for companies and what needs to change. And so one of the things that really resonated for me in your teaching as a coach and a strategy leader is this idea of 140 hours of wasted genius. And what I love about this concept is a lot of times we have our valuable commodity of time. And a lot of times that efficiency and that effectiveness kind of goes away in the workplace, right? We spend a lot of time on projects that maybe take time away from doing other things that could be more structured and more important. And we kind of get stuck in that rut, right? Of just doing things because it becomes very mechanical. So with this idea, where did this kind of come from? What brought you into 140 hours? What was kind of the framing of that specific timing?
Yeah, so there's two different concepts we'll go through. There's this 140-hour concept, and then there's like 40 hours. And so we're still in the 40 hours first. What we found, and data is backs up, is most organizations only spend 2% of their time on strategy. That's equal to 40 hours per year. And
Right.
so if you think about it, it's like, how can it only be 2%? Well, the reality is, if you think of a boat and that small little rudder in the back of the boat, which is guiding the boat, it's just a small percentage of the total weight of a boat, but it literally changes the course and direction. Same
Right.
thing is with strategy and vision, right? When you have the right strategy and vision, you're going to go in the right direction. But if you look behind in the wake, it's rarely a straight line, right? It's
Yeah.
going back and forth, it's moving around. And so from that concept around it, that's where that drives in, is this 40 hours. And so what we do is we help work with organizations on maximizing those 40 hours to be effective using research-based work combined with practical experience to actually help get it done for small to mid-sized business. We also work with larger business as well. But the core behind it is really just really effective execution of getting things done, not just being, strategic facilitations are fun. For many,
Right.
not for all, but for many it is. The problem, which is my passion, is they don't get done typically. Matter of fact, PricewaterhouseCoopers said less than 3% of strategic plans actually get executed well. And so we recognize, whether you call it 10%, 5%, whatever, we try to make sure our clients actually get in the top 10% of execution of their strategic plans. We try to give them a 3x return. So that's the concept around the 40, and it's there's 7 different positions we talk about in the captain strategy methodology to actually get that done. So that's one thing. The 140 hours, this concept actually is one of my first clients when we opened up 40 strategy, where we ran into this really interesting situation. So the client asked them, and I said, okay, how do you make money? Right. In this particular situation, how
Right.
you make, and they were like, well, and so they didn't know, it was like, it was a funny thing. And so they would do surveying, and they're like, well, we think it takes us, they didn't know. So we added up all the hours,
Right.
and we added up every different stage of what it took. And we found out it took 140 hours from purchase order to delivery of their service. Okay.
Mhm.
The fascinating part is it only took 24 hours of actually work to get it done. So the aha moment there was like, whoa, if we can get this now, let's say out in 40 hours instead of 140 hours, we have the ability to help make them millions, literally millions or more dollars per year.
Right.
And I remember it literally calling up my wife in between sessions of facilitation. I said, I'm going to help make this client millions of dollars. And that's literally what happened.
Right.
We help them understand that there's a tremendous amount of waste and frankly, nearly everything that we do. And so the key behind that is, how do you help find the things that are adding value versus those that aren't adding value? And you try to eliminate that. Now, of course, with AI, it's just taken it to an exponential level,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
Things that we thought took even a strategic facilitation, we thought it'd take it, like a vision creation exercise. For sometimes you go to facilitation, that might be a 2 or 3 day event. We can now do it in 90 minutes.
Right.
And so that's the power, right? Of like not just removing the waste, but actually making the effort even far more efficient than it used to be. And so that's where that comes from. It's this ability, once again, to not only see where you're adding value, but then rethink, can this be done differently? Can this be done with more value around it? And then it forces you, because what we try to do with companies is stop thinking about 3% or 4% or 10% improvements. Stop it.
Yeah.
These are not good enough. We have to be thinking about 2, 3, 4, 5x return
Yes.
off things, sometimes
Yes.
10x, sometimes 100x. And that forces you to think differently. And we are now, because of the democratization of AI, we know how all have the access and ability to do it, which we couldn't do it before.
Right.
And so that's what's so exciting about the current environment we're in today.
I agree with you. And I think one of the things that is standing out to me and that keeps replaying in my head as I'm listening to you is this idea of overwhelm. Right. One of the things I see, I come from a manufacturing background, and so I'm very familiar with systems and process and finding patterns, right? And looking at these very intricate processes. I'm a chemist. I was doing that for many years. And so what tends to happen for me and what I'm hearing you say is we have to look big picture, but our iterations have to make sense where we slow down sometimes to actually make sure that we are not um, overwhelming the system,
Mm.
right? Because at
Mhm.
the end of the day, we do actually have people in here, right? We
Mhm.
have
Of course.
people slotted in. And so if we give people too much at once, they're gonna back off from that because it feels too insurmountable. But if we frame it in a way that's like, here's our initiative, right? This is our 10x goal or our 5x goal or whatever we're gonna do. But we break this into smaller iterations and we say, okay, today we're gonna do this. Tomorrow, let's worry about tomorrow, right? But we look at this and we break this down, it becomes less intrusive, less invasive, right? And then from that point, I feel like um, people are more likely to accept and buy into that invitation because you're not messing with their psychological safety at that point. It feels calmer, right? Even though the picture is to get bigger.
Yes, yeah, you're hitting on a very important focus point of how effectively how do you do change management, right?
Right.
And and so first of all, most organizations over 90% will say they can't make change and they'll disguise it as they're too busy.
Right.
Now,
Right.
why do I say disguise it? It's because they don't actually have direct incentive to make it better,
Right.
right? They don't have the time to make it better. They don't have to rethink things. They're already overwhelmed with what's taking place. They feel the pressure of changing for AI's sake. They don't even know if it's actually making it better.
Right.
And I loved it how you pointed out, hey, we're going to have a great conversation because you saw the four disciplines of execution behind
Yeah.
me. And so once again, for those who haven't read it, it's a must read. It really is. It's one of
Yes.
these
Yes, it
top
is.
10 books in strategy and execution you have to read or listen to. I've actually had Covey on on the podcast beforehand talking about these parts. But one of the things that I love most about it is they said they originally did the book after 1,500 strategic implementations, and they found out they should only do three things at a time.
Yes. Yep.
Now, the subtle thing was this: they rewrote the book, updated, revised it
Hmm.
after doing 5,000 implementations and said you should only do one
One.
thing at a time. Okay.
Yes.
Subtle little change, significant little change. Because what people miss, what they said is whenever you go to four, you go from three to four, it fails. All of them fail. Not just one thing fails, they all fail. So
Right.
I'm going to, Emily, I can't say the name of it in this podcast, the company, but it's a Fortune 50 company. We were working with them with a strategic planning software company called Cascade Strategy, where I hope to open the US office for. We were doing helping them manage their strategic implementation using our software. It went great. Great experience. Once again, very large company. Everybody knows the name of this company. Just to clarify. So meeting with them, I met with a person. There was a person who was unhappy because we were only tracking the 13 to 15 biggest strategic initiatives.
Right.
The gentleman in the room, and he said, "I'm unhappy because this tool isn't tracking my projects." And I said, "Well, how many projects do you have?" And he said, "I'm responsible for 600
Holy
concurrent
crap.
projects." Okay, 600 concurrent projects. So he's unhappy, and so I asked him this question, Emily. I said, "So how many project managers do you have?" So let me ask you, Emily. So, and because I ask this typically to audiences, so how many project managers do you think they had to manage 600 projects?
I mean, 60.
Yeah, that's a common answer. So a
Yeah.
really common answer is basically 1 to 10 ratio.
Right.
They had 600 project managers.
Wow. Not
Okay.
good.
Now, well, no.
Oh
So
no,
this is
it
what
is good. Actually, it depends. Yeah, it is good depending on the projects, I would say. Yeah,
Yeah, so
depending on the scope of the
let
projects.
me
Yeah.
go deeper on this, right? Because people are like, this is impossible. You can't afford this. This doesn't happen. Well, let me walk through it with everybody. The reality of this:
Yeah.
when you have one person solely focused on the execution of an important project in the company,
Yeah.
they're gonna, with only focused effort, make sure that that one project gets done with speed, with the resources, and with the quality it needs to get. Nothing else is competing with their personal time to help make sure it gets done. And the funny part is because they're only focused on one thing, they get it done faster.
Right.
And this company does way more than 600 projects per year.
Oh, I'm
The
sure they do.
companies, right? The companies who have one project manager work on 10 projects don't get those 10 projects done with quality, with effectiveness. The company I'm talking about, once again, nobody competes with them in what they do.
Right.
So why did they do this? Because they understand the research.
Right.
They understand the why. They understand that when you're solely focused on one thing at a time, you actually get better execution. And
Sure.
that, man, folks, all of you, Emily, you mentioned you have tons of HR professionals that are here. We sometimes are so, especially because of ChatGPT and AI, I could do so many things. If I employ you on one thing,
Mm-hmm.
stop,
Yeah.
minimize your strategic change, and then see what we do. We go even deeper than this. We go, So the typical OKR, okay, objective and key results that a lot of companies do, maybe use 90 and you're doing it anyways. It's typically a quarterly strategic initiative update. That's the typical approach of most organizations. Better than looking at annually. But what's the reality is what happens. You meet for the quarterly review with the management team. And the reality is you had to get it updated the night before. And the bad news is you started working on that day before,
Right.
meaning you waited because you were busy with the rest of your projects of what is taking place. What we do is we work with our companies and we help train companies how to do 10-week sprints per
Oh,
quarter.
yes, love that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we actually work on micro breaking it down into individual tactical actions that they know what to do. Because the biggest reason they don't work on the quarterly thing is they don't know what to do next.
exactly.
Right.
Yes.
You you get it focused on what to do next. And this is where, believe, going back to ChatGPT or other tools like it used to be hard to create those 10 steps. It still kind of is. But now you can say, hey, ChatGPT, I am now doing a 10-week sprint on devising a new compensation system for this company. Can you break down this project into 10 weekly tasks? It'll create something for you. Then you could reiterate it a couple times. And now you could just get something done in 5 minutes that it would have taken you probably a half an hour to an hour to figure out. That's a powerful thing, right? These are the things that we can once again get, and therefore our execution on those outcomes are going to be so much faster, so much more effective. And never mind, of course, each of those tasks, you're hopefully utilizing AI to help ideate, create, facilitate, right? Them much faster than you would have been. And then it's also important, of course, to get feedback each week. So this is another big problem, right? Is we do things thinking it's right. We don't talk about it with anybody else. You actually want the manager or supervisor, or whatever, be working with you. Or if you're a manager, you need to be working with who you're owning with. Now, Emily, this is the key. This is the differentiator between success and not successful organizations. When on week 3, you're going to meet with the team and somebody's going to say, the dog ate my homework. It snowed last week. It rained too much.
Right.
I was at a trade show, you name it, right? They're going to name some thing. And by the way, why we do 10-week sprints is because usually 3 weeks of the year, too much is going on, right? And so you do not do strategic sprints like during a holiday week. Don't,
Of course, yes.
right?
Yeah,
Stop it, right? Like stop doing those type of things during
right.
during
You're going to
normal
set
weeks. But
people up to fail and it's going to be a mess.
that's
Yes.
right. That's right.
Yeah,
So you get them in, you get the weekly sprints going, and after they say this, they're gonna like, hey, now this is why. Sorry, I'll pick on Agile for a minute. Agile is like, hey, we're a creative software development organization. We just have to keep on pushing this out because we keep on learning new things. And I'm being sarcastic when I say this, right?
right.
So, so when the reality is this is we're always learning new things. Even the sprints when we designed won't be fully right. But
Yeah,
when the dog ate your homework, you have to tell and manage the person you're with is, hey, this is the deal. You understood when you took on this project how important it was for the success of our department, the people around you, et cetera, organization, et cetera. So next week, not only how are you going to do what you're supposed to do last week, but how are you going to catch up so you're fully back on track the next week?
yes.
That, Emily, is when you help understand that, yes, we're keeping you accountable and we're not going to walk away from it. Your success is based on getting this project done. What's super amazing is when you head down this path, they feel grateful because they're once again their normal practices. They do it the 11th hour, do a crappy job at it. They check a box, and it never really works,
Right. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because they weren't bought in. It was like,
right.
oh, did it, check the box, boom, boom,
Exactly.
right?
Right. Well, and
Now
I
you
bel
go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Sorry. You go
No,
ahead.
no, no, after you.
Oh, well, Carl, I believe that is a lot of the reason why culture in companies fails, right? Or values in companies fail is because no one holds people accountable for follow through on the initiative, right? And then that no longer aligns with the values of the company. And so to your point, like the 600 projects, I mean, that is amazing because not every company has that culture that can support that, right? But they need to start looking at things differently because with AI, like to your point, it allows us to not only be more effective or efficient, but more effective if you let it, because you are learning to teach this program how to be you, how
Yep.
to
Yep.
think like you. Basically, it's like it's a you, it's a little you, and if you are able to leverage that, then you just rethought your entire job, right? You rethought the entire way you think about work. And I don't think people have grasped the power of that, the power to be able to say, I am a creator. I just went from a doer to a creator.
Right.
And when you actually do that and you feel like that power of what that feels like to actually be able to share and show and tell, whether it's good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, I did this. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you know what? I did it. And I think that that's something that creates a level of contribution, and it gives us a level of purpose that people are sorely craving right now in the workplace. And this is, instead of looking at AI as the threat and the disruptor, yeah, think about it as a disruptor, but in a good way, right? Because it's going to let you create your next reality at work and also allow you to create like ownership of these initiatives. So you're not letting your team down. You're starting to shine. But we have to have that accountability piece. And if that's
Um,
missing, that's where
yeah.
that's where your culture and everything is going to start collapsing.
Yeah. And I'll take this a step further because and I'm gonna wave my hurry, get wake up flag, I guess
Right.
is the right thing to say. Okay.
Right.
Um, I want you to have this vision right now of this. People are familiar with when a tsunami happens, it's a little tiny bump of a wave. It's a little tiny bump that goes extraordinarily fast underneath the ocean. You could barely detect it.
Right.
But when it gathers momentum towards the shore, it starts to build up, and a massive wave, of course, comes up. And then, and we've seen the horrible scenes of true tsunamis, which create devastation.
Yes.
We're in the early stages of a tsunami.
Yes, we are.
Okay. And so what people have to do is stop thinking it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
What they have to do is they have to if you envision yourself being on a jet ski, you are not going to be able to stay ahead of this because you cannot be faster than it. But what you can do is grab like a back of a jet ski and hold on and try to keep your feet up and ride that wave.
Yep.
For those of you who are ignoring this, you are in the process, whether it's the short-term wave or the long-term wave, of being buried.
Yes.
And I can say this of somebody I know very well who's with a top 5 software company. I'll keep it at that. Okay. And they have just recently announced that they're going to double in the next 3 years, which is unbelievable to think this massive software company is going to double in 3 years. So there's a part of the organization that's built on the cloud AI side, and they're like,
Right.
they feel pretty good about themselves. And then there's the other half of the traditional business that we are all very familiar with that have made money for years. And somebody I know closely to me said, Carl, I've never been in a company that's about to double in size where half of the company is has they're scared that they're going to lose their job.
Isn't that wild?
It's wild and it's happening. And basically, what he said to me, he said, anybody who doubts AI and innovation is let go, period.
Yes.
So, folks, if you don't, and this is true, this is happening. I mean, Seattle, which is a pretty well known, big, large software company, right? Area,
Yeah.
um, And once again, that's not necessarily the home base of the company I was referring to. But the point is this is their unemployment is going up
Hmm.
despite them having some of the most successful companies in the world. Why? Because when people are not choosing to adopt, they're going to be replaced by others who do. And so once again, these are the example of the people in the early stages of the wave that are getting drowned and they're getting buried and they didn't know what happened and hit them. And so, Emily, I'm so glad you have this podcast because the more we can get people to wake up and try to be leaders and innovators in our respective areas, as opposed to stop saying it's not going to happen
Right.
because it's here, it's beginning, and we haven't even scratched the surface of what this going to look 3, 5, 10 years down the road.
Right. Well, and I agree with you. I call it the bullet train, right? It's the bullet train. And once it leaves, there's no grabbing onto it, right? It's not like the old days in the Westerns where you could just jump on the boxcar, jump on and off, because it moved relatively slow. To me, that was the internet, right? This is the bullet train.
Right.
I mean, the stuff that we are producing in Manus right now would blow people's socks off that don't know what this is capable of. And the emotional layer to this for me is that I believe that um they haven't stopped innovating because they're lazy and because they don't want to. I just think that we have this really strange period of time right now in this country where we have 5 generations in the workforce. We have political stuff going crazy. We have all of this like anti-AI hype, all this pro-AI hype. People don't know where the sensible middle is. And by the way, if you were a leading company that's doing really great things with AI, would you tell anybody? Probably not, right?
Right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's why, once
So,
again, people don't know. I mean, there's over
right,
40,000 AI apps right now, right?
right.
They're not obviously going to survive and work, but the innovation is extraordinary. And once again, it's just beginning, right? Keep on hitting. I know, repeating, but I'm repeating for a reason. Is
Right.
because um, get on the train, right? Get on the train
Yeah.
now, right? Get inside. Once again, understand what leading one. We just had Trent Gillespie. He's part of Stellus AI, based in the Seattle area, and he
Yep.
he said that, and they serve. He's speaking in front of crowds of hundreds right now, and one of the things I loved when he was speaking at our conference at the 40 Strategy Growth Workshop, he said, "Hey, Carl," he said this to the whole group. He said, "You need to stop looking at ChatGPT as a tool. You have to start looking at is this is your new way of doing business. This is now your standardized operating system."
Right.
Okay. That's a big leap, right, of how it's being used. And then the second thing, which I thought was really interesting, is we're used to these traditional B2B, business, B2C, business to consumer,
Right.
um, B2G, business to government, right? We're used to those
Mhm.
typical frameworks. Now the future is A to A, which is
I
agent
agree.
to agent,
I agree with
right?
you completely.
Okay. So what's happening once again for those once again who are familiar what's going on is companies are building agents. In the future, there's going to be other agents that are looking for your products and services, and it's going to be the agents that are going to be talking to each other. And what people are going to be doing is managing the agents, right?
Guilty.
Yep, there we are. Okay. So that's where we're heading. That's the future. And this is the sad part. For those who don't understand this transformation, they're going to now understand why their Google AdWords are no longer working.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. And we are doing that very thing right now. We develop agents and agentic to agentic is where it's headed. And the interesting thing about this, because I also believe heavily in the ethical side of this, right? I believe that not every process should be automated. I believe that firmly. I do believe that right now we're not in a situation where AI can be empathetic and it can, drive certain aspects of that. It can't feel like humans can. It still requires a level of oversight, but it is making things possible every day that we didn't know were possible. And if you don't see it in action, you really don't know. And what I believe is as a when I lead a team or my team, I encourage them to be curious about this stuff. As a company, we give them a sandbox. We give them a place to play. We're like, go try out new tools. Do it in a safe way, but don't be afraid to play in here and discover things because the last thing that we want is for you to feel like no one is listening to you and no one is hearing you because AI, so many people's jobs and the way that they function in their work life, it is tied to their identity and is tied to their ego and is tied to who they are. And AI makes you question that. Because if AI can replace you,
That's right. Yeah,
then who are you?
that's right.
Right? So what you've got to do is figure out really who you are and leverage that and be better than it. Because AI is going to put you in it's going to put us all in a situation where we cannot be mediocre anymore. We're not going
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
allowed to be mediocre anymore. We have to not only be efficient, but be effective. And learning and development, L&D culture better start making a comeback because this
yeah, yeah.
technology is too new and is too unbridled for us to really know what it's capable of because it advances every day. So we better have an L&D culture because if you don't, it's the difference between the atomic bomb and the hydrogen bomb.
It's yeah, this is well said, Emily. How you're going through this, and what's been going through my mind as you're talking through this is just once again the individual which has an opportunity to be great, to do great work, to do extraordinary things. They have to realize, for example, let's say you're in a consulting organization. Information is effectively free now.
Yes.
So but what still needs to happen, we like to view things in the world of like done DIY, right? That's going to Home Depot, right?
Mhm.
And then done with you and then done for you.
Right.
And so you could kind of think of your product services and those type of concepts. And what's really great is when you could do all three of them. You're selling product services that apply to all three of those. The reality is there's a lot of people that are frozen. And so those who are like you, Emily, or that are helping where we're doing the same thing, right? Who are helping people to stop being frozen and helping them to get to the next level because it's still especially in high ticket items, right? There's still trust for a human to make a decision to buy a product or service,
Yes.
and trust is at an all-time low, which it should be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, for 100 different reasons, right?
Right.
Political,
Any
you
which
name
way
it,
you
right?
cut it.
And
Right. Yeah.
things you don't believe you're seeing on news, things you're seeing, you can't trust things right anymore, and you shouldn't, by the way. Um, but there are authentic, genuine humans that actually can help you,
Yes.
and finding them. But what that requires, interestingly enough, this is where Emily, where I do think human connection is really important, is validating. This is why, once again, we're doing in-person workshops because we want people to genuinely and experience human experience that these are actually other humans and businesses that authentically know how to do things to help you make decisions now to execute on what you need to get done, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Through that part, through this opportunity, through this experience, then you can move forward and be successful again. The worst thing, like it's a deer, like when we've all been there, right? We're driving all of a sudden in the middle of the road and you see this deer, it's freezing the headlights. That's how us humans are acting right now with AI. And we need to get off the road and not get hit by that car that's
Exactly.
steaming away, right?
Yeah.
And we need to once again start running towards right these opportunities that are here. And as I said, I'm excited by it. I'm excited about what's taking place, but I do from the human side, I feel for those who are choosing and they're acting frozen or they're like, hey, I'm near the end of my career. But it's sad because we were half of our work is with private equity backed companies and or people trying to sell towards there. And
Right.
there's people like, oh, I thought that was great business, and so they're holding off to like wait to sell their company, and then next thing they know, it's like, well, why aren't they calling anymore? Well, it's because they've already bought up all of your competitors, and now you can't be found on the internet anymore,
Right.
and now they're going to just bury you. And this is even for like traditional things that people thought are safe, like HVAC and plumbing and carpentry. It's like, oh, I'm fine because we got labor. It's like, no, you're not fine, right?
Exactly. Right.
You're going to be an employee of this larger PE firm unless you can create trust, authentic, genuine trust on the human side, and you actually perform quality work,
Right.
right? And that's the stuff because so the irony behind all of this is I actually think real trusted testimonials and word of mouth is actually going to bring you more business than I'm not talking about the large businesses, but in the smaller business side, is A to A, if you may, it's
Yeah.
actually going to beat that because people are yearning other people who have experienced it and they're like, oh, I see you in the flesh. I trust that this worked. I will now buy this product or service from you.
Yeah, I agree. We did a lot of work in the home services sector and still do. I probably know 1,000 people in plumbing and HVAC and electrical from the applicant pro days. And you know, it's going to be real interesting to see what happens with these companies and because a lot of them can't even afford an HR person.
Oh, no, of course.
But
Yeah.
they, what they don't realize is they can afford AI.
Yes.
And they don't really understand sort of the power of it to be able to do some of these functionalities for them. And what I believe is I think the hang up towards it is many of them, at least from my perspective, is it comes down a lot to the generational stuff. I see this a lot with companies and even my own family members, like as they are like in their 60s, 70s, some of these are like our traditional business owners of small to medium-sized businesses and B2B and B2C in this country. And um there is a pushback because I talk to a lot of these people. And what's interesting is I have a dear friend who does like he does AI and software and hardware for like the deskless worker, right? And that's 80% of the population. 80% of our workforce are deskless workers.
That's right. Yeah.
And what I tell these business owners a lot of the time when I deal with them is I'm like, look, you're not your customer. You're not
Sure.
dealing with the pain. Like you don't even know what your customers deal with. Like, and your system might be archaic and like that's why you're not bringing in, or maybe you want to hand this business off to like your family. Because I think the other thing we're going to start seeing, and I have another friend that does like work with family businesses, God bless him, but we're going to start seeing a lot more family businesses starting to get handed off to the next generation of people,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Faster and faster than
And
expected.
faster. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so these younger generations are going to be pushing towards AI. And if the people that are still running them are not on board with that and they wait too long, they might be setting their next generation that they're going to hand these businesses off to for some backpedaling. And it might not
Well,
be
I
it
mean,
might not be a good situation for them because it takes a lot of foundational planning before you can even start implementing anything. And a lot of these businesses that are still running on paper, which a lot of them are, as you
Yeah, they
know.
are. Still are. Oh
I
yeah. Oh yeah.
mean, they
Yeah.
got some work to do. And if you don't have, if you're saying I don't have time right now, you better make time.
Emily, this kind of cracked me up. Gosh, it was almost 10 years ago when I opened up the US office for a strategic planning software company. And um, I didn't do allow for two things. This a decade ago.
Yeah.
No file cabinets
Holy crap.
and no file cabinets and no copy machine.
Holy mackerel. What
And
were they in,
I,
like banker boxes?
well, I tell you what, the funniest thing with this whole, I was the oldest person in that company at that time. So back then I was 40
Yeah.
and everyone was younger than me and they were fighting me.
Holy crap.
But it was the right thing because it was once again the beginning of the future.
Right.
Stop printing, stop acting like it's like, folks, no, stop it. That's the past. Stop working in the past. But once again, what you just described, there once again, that we're at a whole once again keeping a whole different level of that. But yeah, it's crazy. There still is people doing documented orders, right?
Mm.
Paper orders. And it's like it's going to where? And of course, it's not being tracked and not being filed. And it's almost a waste of time anyway. Speaking of
Right.
waste at the very beginning of all this, right? Things we do that really isn't creating value. Yeah, it's amazing the opportunities. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I get worried about these almost forced pass down of generation of companies because the baby boom generation feels overwhelmed and most of them are already we're over the halfway point, right, of people
Right.
getting through right now at this point. But just got there. But it's gonna happen, it's wrote down, and they're gonna be like, oh, I need to let go. The problem is if they weren't adopting it, they didn't teach that next generation to be innovative,
Right.
which is what you were talking about earlier, right? So what do you do then? Right.
Yeah.
And this is where going back to like I agree with you. It's like we got to make time to be curious. We got to stop. One of the things when we're doing leadership training, and I'll ask people, what do you do in the beginning of the day? And about 11 times out of 10, it's kind of a half joke. They'll say, I look at my email.
Right.
Folks, you've already lost the day.
Yep.
You cannot be curious. You cannot create innovation if the first thing you do is be alarmed by what somebody else is telling you what to do. You need to create time in your morning forget about the human side of like belief systems and exercise and like really
Right.
important things like to be a effective human, eating well.
Right.
Okay. Let's just pull
Still
that
do
aside for
all
a minute.
that stuff, but
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Let's pull that aside. All right. Of course. But the work side, if you want to be a leader, you should be setting the first 60 to 90 minutes each day on something that's moving the dial.
Yep.
Then you look at your email. Then you respond to things. But and literally have and whether you decide to do it in the morning or in the afternoon, I recommend mornings because you have time to think about it before the tsunami hits in your day-to-day work. But this is how I always love when people say, I can't do this. Like, yes, you can. Change the way you think, create different habits.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're going to be, I hate to say it, you're going to be passed by.
Right. Yeah. That's great advice. And I think, you know, Ryan, our CEO, we did a roundtable earlier today because that's another thing. If you are not doing roundtables like as a professional, get on at least one roundtable a month if you can. Get with people who are think differently than you do. Because, like, frankly, if you are just around the same people all the time and they're telling you what you want to hear or whatever the case is, or the same stuff over and over again, like you're really doing yourself a disservice. But we were on a roundtable earlier, and that's kind of exactly what we were talking about is like habit transformation was something that came up, and people are notoriously terrible at habit transformation. And Ryan and I have talked about this, like self-help, consulting, sex life help, all of these things, get a better body in 90 days, all of these things, eat better, here's a diet, these things will never go out of style, right? Because people are endlessly trying to improve themselves. The problem is they do it like a New Year's resolution, where it's
Right.
like, I'll do it. That's why gyms make so much money after the first of the year on memberships. They sell memberships and then people like just dip like after the first
I,
month, right?
yeah, it's January 18th, I think it is, or something
Yeah.
like that. Is the
Yeah,
day?
January
It's called
18th,
quitting
like
day, something
they
like that.
dip.
It's
Yeah,
quitting
they
day. Yeah,
totally dip.
yeah,
And gyms make a ton of money because no one comes back and they just pocket, right? So what we tend to do is if we get people into these mindsets is we'll set up like a drip email that goes out every morning or a text or something that reminds them to do something. Or maybe it's an introspective question that they have to like just a rhetorical thing that they ask themselves, but it's something to remind them, at least for initially, till they get in the habit of doing it themselves. Because left to our own devices, we as humans suck at that. And
well,
we'll
yeah,
always find an
yeah,
excuse to not be accountable, especially if we're left to be accountable to ourselves. That's why, like programs like AA and all these other things, you have a sponsor or you have someone that you have to be accountable to because we we're not strong enough usually as humans, right?
yeah.
Unless you have
Well,
the strongest constitution on the planet.
yeah, it's So, by the way, it's the second Friday in January is typically when the quitting day is.
Oh,
So
you looked
just a
it up.
little note there. So, yeah, I was like,
Nice.
what was the actually? But second Friday in
Right.
January is the typical one.
Right.
So you're saying, and why? Let's go into why. These are neuro. These are once again, this is beyond my pay grade, right? Like I'm
Mine
a
too, but yeah,
bean counter by trade. I'm a strategy and operational expert, right? I help grow
right.
businesses. I help create value. That's what we do. But I can't change companies unless I change their habits.
Yeah, 1000%. Yep.
And so what we do is we create crazy goals to force ourselves to change our habits. We create plans and have we call it strategic plans, a hypothesis. It's not a fact. We don't presume we're going to be right. So we allow for failure. We allow for understanding. We allow for changing, right? Because that's often a big problem is like people go in, oh, it's going to be done for
We
sure.
have to give ourselves grace.
We create accountability, but
Yep.
all those things are forcing habit changes. And then of course what I didn't say is we actually work with the second tier of leadership or third tier because they're the ones typically doing the work and we want their
Right.
input on how it's going to get done because they have to own
Yes.
it typically,
Yes.
right? These are the ways that we can create these changes. We've done it time and time again, but when you skip even one of the steps, it fails almost every time. And so it's like, well, why isn't it? Because it's hard work. I'm a one of the few crazy so I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach. We don't
Right.
do
Right.
it all the time, but it's a small thing of what we do. Discipline, which is one of the 34 strengths under Gallup, is one of the least likely attributes to have in your top five. So what bothers me is when people say you need to be more disciplined. We're not disciplined. Most people are not disciplined, but you can change your habits if you have somebody to help keep you accountable
Right.
towards this. And then that's like, well, that's why people hire us to come in because left to their own devices, they're going to go back to where they feel comfortable, what they know. This is the
Right.
problem with students. We go back to our neural pathway. Oh, that cinnamon roll
All the time. Yeah.
tastes so good. I do. There's a little coffee shop by where I live in Salmia, work. One of my favorite things to do is get a nice warm cinnamon roll, latte, hot in a mug. Oh, it is it is the best. If I did it every day, I would be a very unhappy person. I'd be happy for a moment and
Right.
want to take a nap the rest of the day. Right. So I can't do that every day. So I go to the same place actually, but I've changed my habits of what I get each day by
Right.
hard work, right? By saying, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. These are my weight goals. These are whatever it might be. These same concepts in the New Year's resolution is the same concept you do at work. These
Right.
folks, this is not new information, but the hard part is the habit changes because we're used to what we do.
Right. Well, I think it's definitely that, and I think to take it a step further, the other hard part of it is decluttering the noise, right?
Oh yeah.
Because
Oh yeah.
we have the actual doing the thing, but we might have every external, internal noise set coming at us from every direction. It's almost like at some points the universe is like it's like trying to prevent us, right, from doing that. But that's, I believe, why it's important to design these things where even though there's chaos, it can be a system or a culture or whatever it is, a habit that can really kind of withstand the test of time and respond to anything. And I think AI, like, kind of, because I use AI in my habit stuff, like I've built like AI for like habit tracking and like different things. And it's really allowed me to kind of be able to respond to anything where, like, even if I have to take a step away from it for something, I still manage to come back to it because I'm making time. Or if I have to like snooze it or do something to like remind myself later to think about that, then I'll come back to it, but I'm still thinking about it, and so it's allowed for a level of introspection that even, most of us go through different life cycles of different things that happen to us. But I think when you start unpacking this stuff and you start looking at causality and, all of this stuff, causation and all of the things, um, it really allows you to kind of weed through that chaos and say, like, I know at the end of the day, like, this is my foundation and I'm set in that. And once you lay that foundation and it becomes set like concrete, it's really going to weather the test of anything. And I think that's where companies, when once they do that, once they take the time to reset that foundation, if it's starting to crack, that's where they're going to have success, because it all really comes down to that, I think. Values, accountability, and how you design those systems to
That's right.
respond,
That's right.
and,
And
and your people.
yes, yes, yeah. It's you're nailing it, and and once again, this is why I always think it's valuable to have the outside view, right? Because the inside view, we find we get hired a lot of time because they recognize they're going to have the same behavior internal discussions internally, and they kind of want me to honestly call them on it
Right,
and to push them through something because they're going to go back to their same habit and their same internal same arguments that
right,
prevents them from moving forward. And I'm like, that's not okay. We have to get to this outcome. You're paying me fair money to get to an outstanding result, and we're
right,
going to get towards that outstanding result. Like, I'll just give you a small example. It's like people are like, Carl, how do you run two businesses and have travel around to see your kids playing sports around the country and have four kids in a relationship and be with your spouse for 30, your high school sweetheart for 30 years? And
yeah,
how do you watch and participate in other sports and da da da, right? And it's like, well, you look at my calendar, it's very organized.
yes,
And my Fridays, which is today it's being recorded on, is my podcast day. So I have a weekly podcast. We have a weekly blog. We've created habits, and I don't record every Friday, but on the Fridays that I'm available, we'll have two or three podcasts that we're recording.
right,
We have a 6 month backlog of podcast, right? It's why this is we've gotten to the fourth best strategic planning podcast, Message podcast. This was not an overnight success, by the way,
right, right,
but we were consistent of delivering and one a week. And this is once again is like these like oh I hate it like overnight successes. There's very few overnight successes, but when you can develop habits and you develop practice around it, and no, I'm not doing all the back end work. Heck no, right? And with AI tools, our podcasting cost, which used to be like $500 a month, 500 per episode,
right,
is down to like $50.
right.
You know,
Yep.
compared to what it used to be. And once again, an example of using tools and areas around, and this includes all of the distribution of all of the marketing stuff that goes on in the snippets, etc. This is what's cool, right? This is what I get excited about. It's like we can do these things. It doesn't have to be overwhelming if you make it a part of your habits, your calendaring system, right? And your focus of what you think is important and not important. And stop thinking overnight you're going to be the success because you did 3 podcasts and you stopped and you're like, oh, it wasn't successful.
Right.
No. But yeah, we had to beg people in the early days to get in the podcast, Emily. But over time, we literally say no to the vast majority of people who apply.
Right.
Apply. We have
Yeah.
actually applied to be on the podcast, right? So it's a fascinating trend. But once again, it wasn't overnight. It took time, and anybody can do these things. That's the cool part, right? This is
Yes.
not a
Yep.
cost thing anymore. But it just take and so can you like it's like that question? Can you not for an hour a week get a podcast done and spend $50?
Right.
You kidding me? Right? Anybody can do these things,
Right.
but they won't because they get overwhelmed. They don't know. And by the way, we did pay somebody to help us figure out how to do it. Like once again,
Oh, sure.
you know, but after we figured it out.
Right. Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. And I think we have the ability now. First of all, I think humans in general, we crave structure, right? So it doesn't really surprise me when your clients seem relieved when you come in and you're like, okay, we're gonna have structure today. Like we're gonna put things into perspective and we're gonna have a system, right? Because I mean, I was listening to Will Smith's autobiography in the car. We had a road trip to Arizona over the last weekend, and my daughter and I, and she were listening to his autobiography, and he talks about his dad, and his dad was a severe alcoholic and was actually abusive, and his whole life, like his grandparents sent his dad to like some farm to try to like get him into shape, and it was some religious like whatever, and he got kicked out of this place somehow, and they were like, we can't deal with him. Well, then he underage went and enrolled in the military and did very well in the military because of the structure. It was exactly what he needed, even though he was like a total crap show, outside, but that the military gave him structure, which is what he needed. And he instilled that in Will Smith, which is why Will Smith, like, he dedicated. He did and worked and worked and worked and worked. And that's all he did. And he kept himself clean and off drugs and, like, did all the things that were dedicated to his career, systematically just did the thing. But that's what we have to do if we want to do something well is you have to have that structure and that organization. You're going to fall if you don't. And I believe that we crave that. I really do believe that. Um, I also think with the podcasts, one of the interesting things is anybody can have a podcast, anybody can have a platform today. I believe that, I mean, I'm a constitutionalist, so I believe in free speech. What I also
Amen.
believe in is that we have a responsibility of what we disseminate out into the world. And when we're given that opportunity, because anybody can do this now, that it should be with the hope, the foundational hope of bringing people together to understand how we can make the world better. Because I have a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old. They're that generation, this Gen Z generation, younger generations, they are severely lacking purpose right now.
Oh yeah.
Because as a parent, even sometimes, like the only advice I can give you guys is you better learn how to use AI, right? I don't know what the future is going to hold for you, but I'm not even going to tell you to go to college because I don't know that you're going to need to. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but what I do know is you need to be a good person. And you need to learn how to use tools that are going to be leveraged to help you discover things about yourself because AI to me is a mirror. It's going to help you excel in things and it's going to show you your blind spots, right? So,
I yeah, I'm with you. I think it was interesting, and I do think the younger generation right now, who are coming into the workforce and having a hard time finding a job in the workforce, for our generation, right? It was kind of
yeah,
pretty simple. Work hard, get a degree, and people think they know what you know. Work hard at that next job, get trained really well, and then
right,
and then build your rank up, right?
right.
Now those jobs are being automated, right? But this goes back to kind of the very beginning of some of this conversation, right? Is you need to have a vision. You need to
Yes,
have a purpose.
yes,
You need to follow through on what it takes to get there and find things that are true, right? Now I
yes,
know truth is an interesting word. I'm a person of faith where I believe that's where my truth comes from. But whatever your truth is, it's
right.
so important to be grounded in something that's time tested,
Yes,
right? Because there's so much, like I understand the younger generation. I understand the older generation is not trusting what they're seeing, but there are things that are time tested that are true. And so like for myself, I go back to that every day,
yes. Me too.
right?
Yeah,
You know, I go back to these truths every day to ground myself, to know what's important. And then, secondly, you take the next step of going beyond that. I think, in my humble opinion, that's how we can drive. And that's what like, my very beginning, like you said, is like, I'm trying to impact thousands of businesses and business owners and their employees and the
yeah,
people. Why? Because that gets me out of bed each day.
yes.
That stops me. Like, I don't, okay, am I going to, sorry on the riff here.
No, go for it.
Okay, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever. Great. We post on them all of the time because that's where your eyeballs are at.
Right,
We do podcasts to be searchable,
right.
okay, to
Yep,
create content.
yes,
I personally only spend a little bit of time on YouTube on specific things from an educational or inspirational part. I, for the most part, don't go on nearly any of the platforms. I briefly will touch them from time to time. Why?
right.
Because when you're a content creator, you shouldn't be making time to go out. Now, okay, Gary Vee would argue with me. I get it. Okay, on some of this stuff, but for myself personally, who I'm trying to move forward, you you got to be really careful. Like we post stuff, and there's times when nobody even respond to it, nobody even like it. I don't let that bother me.
Exactly. Yep,
Okay. You
same.
should
Yep,
not do your sense of worth. I can't tell you the amount of people, the authentic, real relationships where even my brother the other day, he said, Carl, I don't tell you this, but I love your stuff. I see you everywhere. He doesn't comment on any of it.
right.
That is far, by the way, if you're selling to CEOs, they don't typically comment because why? They're worried about getting in trouble. Okay.
Yes. Yep,
Right? So don't worry about it if you're selling to CEOs and they're not responding. And if you really want to be respond, go to the next level of people who are on LinkedIn all the time, on these social media things all the time. Go to those platforms if you need to feel better worth
right,
on the number of likes. But folks, that's vanity metrics. That's not impact, right?
right.
And that's where you want to find is impact, where you ultimately help people change their habits so they have a better purpose and they have joy and they create a difference in the world. That, folks, on the HR side, you want to do with your employees, with your companies. You want to help individuals understand what's important to them, help them get to their outcomes. And then, of course, you help them innovate and be great so they can survive and through this challenges that we're going to have and embrace it, right? Embrace this because I think it's the most exciting thing. Let it be the most exciting thing rather than the most scary thing. It's the way how we perceive the same thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's about perception and intention, really. And I think you're right with I always equate like vanity metrics to ticking a box, and employee engagement a lot of times we think that that's, if we tick the boxes, they'll engage. Let me tell you, your employees know when you're full of shit. They do. They know when you are just ticking the box,
That's right.
and it irritates us. So don't do it, because I'd rather, at least for me, I'd rather you were honest and just said, look, like, we really just don't care, than tick a box to be full of shit, to say you did it for compliance, right? Because compliance to me is not the same as human contribution,
No,
and it never
no,
will be.
no.
So I think when we talk about these things, we have to come from a place of intention that is pure, and that is to uh lift up people, and not just be this fake response. We have to let people grow, and support and promote that, because um otherwise we're just being performative at that point, and that's
I
not a
agree.
good strategy for anybody. So, well, Carl, I know we're about out of time, and I this has been a lot of fun having you on, and this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you being here. I'm definitely going to pick up your book, Lost at Sea, CEO. It looks amazing, and it's Entrepreneur's Guide to Strategy, which I love. It's behind you as well, there on the shelf, and so I'm definitely going to order it off of Amazon, and I think it's available on your site as well. And so this has been an absolute treat having you on the show. Thank you so much. If you want to get in touch with Carl, you can do so on LinkedIn, on his website. And then just a reminder, everybody that's on this show is a resource, right? So reach out to us either on LinkedIn, on our websites, on our YouTube channel, any which way you want to reach out to us. But we are all here to support the community, and as resources to businesses, to individuals. And that's really important to all of us that do these podcasts. We really want to try to make a positive impact on the community. So any last thoughts, or any last little tidbits of wisdom you want to leave us with, Carl?
Yeah, I first of all, from a contact, I'm gonna actually give people my email.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you really want to truly connect with me, and it's one place you can get directly to me. It's Carl J. Cox, so CarlJCox at 40strategy.com. So Carl J. Cox at 40strategy.com. I'll get it. Say you heard us on this podcast. We have a $1 ebook out there of the book. So
Yeah.
you can get it very cheap. There's an audiobook out there as well. But once again, what our passion at the end of the day is we are trying to change lives. And you, as once again, in your community, Emily, of HR and people who are impacting and talking with the people, genuine, authentic leadership combined with purpose, combined with healthy accountability, right? To succeed, and rewarding those accomplishments is where we can create extraordinary success, extraordinary results. And it's been a privilege to be on your show once again, Emily. I love how the questions you asked, the conversation. Thank you so much for this opportunity today.
Yeah. Thank you, Carl, and have a wonderful weekend.
So there you have it. Carl just walked us through what it really takes to not just survive, but thrive in this AI transformation. The 40 hours of strategic focus, those 10-week sprints that actually get executed, and the kind of accountability that makes people feel grateful instead of overwhelmed. But here's what really stuck with me. Carl's point about moving from being a doer to being a creator. That's the shift that's happening right now in workplaces everywhere. And for all of us in HR, in leadership, and change management, we're not just managing this transition, we're modeling it. Carl's email is carljcox at 40strategy.com if you want to connect with him directly. He mentioned that one ebook, and honestly, if you're working with teams who are struggling with strategic execution, it's worth checking out. Look, we're all feeling that tsunami Carl talked about. But what gives me hope is conversations like this one. Real practitioners sharing what's actually working, not just what sounds good in theory. Because at the end of the day, culture isn't a poster on the wall. It's what happens when people feel supported to grow, to experiment, and yes, to fail forward together. If today's conversation sparked something for you, whether you're an HR leader, a consultant, or someone trying to help your organization navigate change, don't let it stay in your head. Pick one framework Carl shared and try it with your team this week. Thanks for being part of our Talent Talks community. We're here to support each other through these changes, and that means staying curious, staying connected, and remembering that behind every transformation are real people doing real work. Until next time, keep championing the humans in your organization. They're counting on leaders like you to help them see possibility instead of just disruption.